There was one. Yeah, although that difficult last night.
So you're gonna need to make a motion on that then?
No.
We should be okay now with Sebastian.
Hey.
We fast, we wait.
So that will be motion would be approving minutes.
Yeah, that's Sebastian.
Okay.
Fine. Over to Sebastian. And then James will send it to you and then Abby comes after signing this.
We are ready.
So the motion would be approving minutes for everyone.
Correct.
Which,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, are we ready to go? We'll start with roll call. I'll take that.
Janelle Brandon. Larry Southwell.
Here.
Abby Gold. James Hand.
Here.
Sebastian McDougal.
Here.
Gia Rassier. Lindsay Schoenack.
Here.
Okay, and the first thing we have this evening is pretty exciting. We have Rosalind Johnson here from Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, and they have a presentation. They brought a donation, and maybe actually I'll let you, Rosalind, take it away from here to talk about.
Sure. So I am from Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union here in Moorhead. And something really cool that Affinity Plus has established this year is giving back to our community. And we chose the Moorhead Parks and Rec to give $3,500 to have some benches made and some bike racks and some bike stations. And then $750 of that's going to go to one of the scholarships that you guys have as well. And then we are going to be kicking in an additional $316 for the engraving of all those items throughout the city of Moorhead. So I'm really excited for this partnership, and I think it will be something that will be able to grow and be able to be something that Moorhead Parks can be affiliated with Affinity Plus for a long, long time. Something that we do at Affinity Plus that I kind of wanted to mention is that you guys are a preferred partner with us. So anybody that is part of the Moorhead Park Board or the City of Moorhead is eligible for membership. So that's something that I had given you guys some bags, and you guys can check us out and see what we're all about. But that's the biggest thing that Affinity Plus prides himself on, is giving back to the community. We have a foundation that gives back scholarships throughout the year. MSUM, we have a $3,000 scholarship that we award to one student there. And then every year at the end of January, we award a scholarship for $5,000 to one Affinity Plus student, and we award 8 of those. So we're really community involved, and we really want to get more affiliated with the communities that we're in, and that's why we're here to give this check for $3,500.
Awesome. Well, and we thank you very much. It's really exciting for the park. I guess we'll do the ceremonial handover of the giant check, right? Okay.
And here's the official check. Unless you wanted to try to cash that one. Thank you.
Well, I personally want to thank you so much, and Rosalind has been wonderful to work with. Steve and Mike over here have helped us to get some items just exactly what they're looking for, and without partners like you, it just is more that we can offer our citizens that does not go on the taxpayers' dollars. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from last. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, so we are able to accept that. So I would entertain a motion to approve last meeting's minutes.
I will make a motion.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Citizens addressing the board, seeing as though we don't have any citizens, We'll move on to the next item, which is agenda amendments, which I don't believe there are any amendments. So we'll go,
None that I'm aware of.
okay. We'll move on to the presentation, the City of Moorhead Strategic Plan, Steve Moore.
Thank you. I think we have some slides coming up. So, yeah, this is a good time to talk a little bit about the strategic plan that we've had in the works for quite a while now, and I'll just give you a quick rundown of that plan. Yes, thank you. So, why plan? We have to have a roadmap for what we're going to do over the next several years for the city of Moorhead. And we have lots of requirements, lots of things we want to do, so we have to focus those efforts. So during the building of the strategic plan, we got together the city staff as well as the city council members and the mayor, and spent a lot of time together getting to know each other, know our styles, which really helps in developing relationships and developing the plan once you get together and work well together as a team. So we want to build this living plan. It's not a plan that's going to be put in a 3-ring binder and thrown on the shelf somewhere. It's in a software system that allows us to keep updates. The city staff puts their operational plans in this cascade that feeds into the strategic plan and supports that strategic plan. And we are now in the process of giving updates periodically to the city manager as well as the city council on things that we've accomplished in the city strategic plan. And we're actually going through a rework of that plan because we've had a pretty good turnover of city council members since the initial development of the plan. So it's now time to relook at the plan, get inputs and feedback from the new council members to make sure that we're still moving in the right direction, or if there's any course corrections we need to make with the new council and the citizens they represent, we'll do it at that time. Next slide, please. So one of the things in strategic planning was to develop, you got to have mission, vision, and values. And really our vision, our mission statement came right out of the city charter. So that's the basis of the mission of our city government and the strategic plan. And then our vision is I'm not going to read these, you can read those, but the key words are, it's a living plan and, driven by a sense of purpose, pride, and commitment to our community. So those words are very simple, but we are passionate at the city staff, the council members are passionate about making our community better, and it's through the strategic plan. And the values are really key to this. It's our 3 values are integrity, service, and commitment. So without integrity, you have nothing, and we're here to serve. The city staff are here to serve the community, the council are here to serve the community, and we want to make sure that that's one of our core values. So we continue to remind ourselves that that's why we're here. That's why I do what I do, is to serve. And that's why all of the directors and all the council members are serving. And then we're committed. We're committed to our jobs, we're committed to our community, and we're committed to the residents. Next slide, please. So all the initiatives, and it's really interesting if you look at strategic plans around a lot of cities and municipalities around the country, a lot of the strategic initiatives are very similar. And so we developed these 7 initiatives, the 6th surrounding the identity. It's really who we are. And that was the major question when we developed the strategic plan. Who are we? When somebody says what is Moorhead and who is Moorhead? We kind of said, well, we kind of think it's this. It's kind of a feeling. So we really wanted to develop that. And so next slide, we developed the identity, and that's the brand narrative that came out of that. And we really like this, and it's really why and what and how. And if you haven't seen the video, it's on the webpage. It's very good. It really encompasses what our identity is. And we really feel like we hit the nail on the head with that one. So each of those strategic initiatives have multiple goals, and this slide presentation only has a couple of those representative goals, just to kind of discuss identity, envisioning Moorhead and strengthening connections and creating places where we want people to gather. And that, talks about public arts policy, and, really identifying who we are. Next slide. Governance and teamwork. Really part of that is trying to allocate the resources that we have to focus on the areas we need to focus on. So that involves a citywide capital improvement plan, a new comprehensive plan planning process we're going to go through in 2020. We're hiring a new city planner that's going to be parks focused, which is really good because it'll bring all these requirements together in a long-range vision for our parks. And so we'll be working with you, and you'll be seeing a lot of changes and some better long-range planning through that process. It's really exciting. And really, working together as a team and trying to do our work more efficiently and more cost-effectively. Next slide, please. Infrastructure. This is my favorite strategic initiative. And we have several goals under there, and one of our goals is providing safe and well-maintained sustainable transportation systems, roadways, snow and ice removal. You can see the mitigating railroad impacts is another goal, and that's a picture of the 21st Street Underpass project. It's about 65 to 66% complete, and then we're advocating for pursuit of funding for an 11th Street grade separation project. So lots happening in developing that 5-year plan for our transportation systems, not just roadways, but multimodal transportation as well. Next slide, please. Economy, lots going on here. One particular goal is targeting public investment, creating a vibrant and dense downtown. So you may have been involved in downtown planning. That's going on. Housing goal to expand 500 housing units in the next 5 years in the downtown area. You'll see lots of construction going on in Main Center and First Avenue with lots of co-use facilities. The one coming up on First Avenue has commercial on the main floor and residential on the other floors. Partnerships, great partnership with Derek LaPointe and the Downtown Inc. folks, and lots of great things happening downtown. Next slide. Community safety and well-being. It's basically cops, fire, and flood protection. So many things going on, and promoting outreach and involvement in our growing and diverse community is one of the goals. So as you know, our demographics are changing. I like to look at I have a 8th grader and a 4th grader, and you look at the pictures, class pictures, even a 4-year difference in the demographics of those class pictures, you can see the movement of the diversification of the student body between 8th grade and 4th grade. So we are growing and diversifying. So we have to address those changes in our community. And then continued flood mitigation. We're going to start planning for the next flood event here. We are planning for the next flood event. You'll see more to follow on that. So that's one of our goals in community and safety well-being. Next slide, please. Communication. I come from the military, and we always used to say it all comes down to comm. So communication, developing and executing a comprehensive communications plan is the goal. So it's good to have a plan to execute, but if we're not communicating that to the public, our priorities, what we're focused on, the public needs to know what we're working on and that we're working hard in many different areas. And if they don't know about it, then it's almost as if you're not doing anything unless you see something physically happening. So we're going to work to communicate and get public input more on projects that are going. And the comprehensive planning process that I talked about under the other strategic initiative is going to be part of that. There will be lots of community involvement in that process and how we develop the future. Next slide. And partnerships. Perfect example of partnerships here with Affinity Credit Union. We can't do this alone. We can't do this on taxpayer dollars alone and enterprise funds. We need to develop partnerships to do things smarter and more efficiently. We have a lot of partnerships. Fargo Moorhead Trail Builders. We had them recognized for all the work they do on our trail systems. Audubon and the River Keepers. We're expanding our urban woods and prairie initiatives, reducing maintenance costs, fostering growth of wildlife and flowers and all the good things that we need that make our community unique along the river corridor. And that's just strengthening existing partnerships and developing new partnerships is the focus area of that strategic initiative. So next slide. So what does the future hold? Big thing is a community capital improvement program. We have river corridor and trail projects going on. You're familiar with many of these. Inclusive playground that we're advocating for. Southside Dog Park there in River Oaks Point. A natural playground is with the FM Rotary Foundation partnership. And looking at City Hall Library, Community Rec Center, 11th Street grade separation, and my favorite, the Waste Management Campus, which we sorely need. And a lot of those things are in the governor's bill, so we're hoping for good things during the budget build and the bonding process. So hopefully we'll have lots of good news in May. But with that, I think that's the last slide, and that's a pretty quick rundown of our strategic plan. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I just have one quick question. You talked about the city planner that's parks focused, and perhaps I should know this. Is that person already employed? Are we seeking that person?
They're going through the interview process.
Perfect.
Yep. So there's lots of applications, and we're getting ready to go into the interview process.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks.
For the aquatic center or that facility, whatever that ends up looking like, my understanding is there's some money set aside for feasibility study.
Yes.
Is that in the works, or what's kind of the status of that?
It's really, honestly, the feasibility study is not ongoing right now because we're going to see if it lands in the bonding bill, or if we get some traction with the sales tax to generate the revenue to pay for it. We're going to wait to see where that kind of fleshes out, and then that's when we'll start the needs analysis and to determine what that building will look like, getting community feedback and trying to develop the scope of that project. We have a general idea, but really the devil's in the details on that feasibility study, but it hasn't been started yet.
Sure, okay.
How about the natural playground at the Riverfront Park here? How's that project working at?
It's moving along, so most of that, and Holly, jump in here if you have anything to add. The FM Rotary Foundation is really the project champion on that. They're doing a great job. They're working fundraising. They're working grant application. We'll partner with them on the grant application because it has to come from the city. And they have lots of ideas of what's going to go in it. And it could be something that we start that's relatively small and then continues to grow, but there's lots of ideas going around on what that should look like. But I'm confident with the FM Rotary Foundation and the horsepower they have with their partnerships that this thing will move rather quickly. Probably, though not 2021, perhaps the start of that.
That's the same partners that we had when we did the Miracle Field that they brought to fruition. So they're just trying to figure out themselves to what level of fundraising do they get to before they go in the ground and then try to borrow on the rest and pay it off over multiple years. This is also, they are not just the Moorhead Rotary. What the Fargo Moorhead Rotary clubs do is they combine efforts and pick a community project. They picked a playground at Lindenwood as their last project that they finished off paying. So they have a history of really doing these projects and bringing them to a close. I know they came to Frostival and had a table there, so they are at every event we're at. We've seen them in the paper twice, and that's great. They're visiting with folks at the Convention Visitors Bureau. They're beating the ground looking for donations for this project.
And they have partners such as Kilbourne that they're working with planning it
Yeah.
as well. So I think the anticipation is that, this will be a well thought out, exciting project for the area, so.
Yeah, and I think they're looking at it as something that's in the downtown area. Doesn't really, the river just doesn't mean anything to them. It really will connect Fargo and Moorhead together in something really cool, just as that river does. They don't have as much green space anymore now with the flood wall that Fargo had to put up, but this will be close, and it'll be good. It's a good project.
Yeah, and access to that area from the Ped Bridge at Memorial and Oak Grove and just around the new trail system right to Riverfront Park. And that park's, it's a beautiful space. And now that we've had it cleared out and returned it back to green space. It's a blank canvas waiting for some cool stuff.
We did, I went cross-country skiing on our trails at Viking Ship Park and went back there the other day, and there was 4 or 5 parents with kids sledding at the site where this would be happening already, just, using that natural space. So I think they walked in, some drive to the Yumkomst. We see more and more cars down there. I think it's going to be an awesome location.
Year-round, too, and that's the goal, is not just a summer destination, but one for the winter, for sledding, and then having things that the kids can play on and be outside.
Yeah, when Heather came and presented, that was one thing that I think everyone perked up. They're like, ooh, a hill that we can sled on in the winter? That's all. Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Some pretty good contours there.
yeah. Well, thank you, Steve. Any other questions on the strategic plan? Seeing none, we'll go on to the 2020 spend plan, capital and park amenities. And Steve, I believe you're doing that
Okay.
presentation as well.
Yeah, I'll keep, you'll get tired of hearing me talk, but
Yeah.
we've done a lot of work, partnering with Holly and Parks and Rec and Public Works and Park Maintenance and Mike to try to really figure out how we need to spend our money. But I want to mention before I start is all the things that you see laid out here. This is a time, this is just planning. We're executing some of these, but if you have ideas and you have feedback from residents and constituents about particular things, this is the time to see what we have, add things, ask questions. We really value your input in the development of these projects, or even just something as a replacement of a playground. If you see things that we might not see or get feedback that we might not get, and we might have to change plans. But that's what we want to do, is present you our work plan and what we have going on. But it is by no means, we value your input, so we'd like that. It doesn't have to be tonight, it can be at any time as you digest all this. So with that, let's see if I can get this to work.
Do you think it's turned on?
The ON-OFF selector switch is not on. Okay, there you go. A good thing I'm an engineer.
Still not working.
Still not working.
Oh,
There we go.
there's a delay. Oh, I'm just gonna go, I'll go with the next slide. Okay, this is just, I kind of touched on the strategic plan, and so under strategic initiative number 3, infrastructure, we have specific goal, and that's to develop and implement a vision for parks, public spaces to improve quality of life and ensure a healthy environment and attract residents. And what you see under there is right out of our Cascade program, and the objective here is enhancing our park systems to provide safe and well-maintained parks. And part of that in the operational plan is executing funded capital improvement projects. So what we're trying to do is link our strategic plan when we give updates on how we're trying to prioritize our workload and our budget as it aligns with the strategic plan. Next slide, please. So under this task of executing funded capital improvement programs, we have several things going on. I'm not planning on going through each and every one of these, but if there's, as you look down the list, if you see something you would like more information on, I'd be happy to talk about it. Probably one of the, I already talked about the inclusive playground, and we got $10,000 in our CI budget, capital improvement budget, to help with planning that project. And then we also have some funding in 2019 capital improvement to help fund the new dog park at $25,000. So that's both those projects are in the work. The dog park is finalized, River Oaks Point to the farthest point away out into the farthest western point of that park. And we're working a no-rise certificate, and we just finished a detailed cost estimate for that project. Is going to be about $250,000, and we're going to be looking for grants as well as fundraising for that project. And it's going to bring some amenities, a fenced-in area for large and small dogs, and be a premier dog park for our folks in Moorhead. And also part of that cost estimate is to get some amenities in our northern dog park. to have and improve that northern dog park, as well as has some funding for sustainment over the next 5 years for that park, with staffing a seasonal employee to take care of those 2 dog parks, as well as replacing equipment and things that need to be replaced. So that encompasses that $250,000. We're also doing a bathroom on Village Green, number 14, which has been a high request item, and I got a slide on that.
Is that what the building's gonna look like in retrospect, what you have in that picture in there?
Yeah, it'll be pretty close to that, yep. So next slide, please. So all the utilities are run, and it's gonna look similar to that building. Yep, and so it's precast building, and we're waiting to install that when we can get in there in the spring. So that project's moving along. Next slide. We have some park dedication funds that come from the developers, and we can use those to improve parks in the general areas of those developments. So we have some funding from the Bellesley Stonecrest Apartments, and we're going to use that towards a new playground in Queens Park in 2020. So we have ordered that equipment. It'll be similar to what we did at Bennett Park, if you've seen that. We installed a new playground there last year, and we got lots of great feedback from Mr. Bennett as well. Right, Holly? He called me and said he was so pleased with the new playground. So it was, and the residents in that area are as well. So this is just kind of lays out, we have some funding available in Village Green 6th, Hampton 3rd, and the preserves. And we haven't decided what we're going to do with some of those, but we are going to put a basketball court in the Village Green 6th park, and we'll use some of that park dedication funds, that $6,800 to do that. Next slide, please. One thing that I've added this time, it's a long list of projects, but I wanted to highlight the fact that in our facilities program, we are doing projects and work on our parks facilities as part of our overall facilities capital improvement program. So we've spent quite a bit of money in 2019 improving those facilities, like the clubhouse. We did a lot of work in the municipal pool house. If you have been there, we redid the floor, which turned out really, really great, and replaced some edging in the wading pools, and fix some of the concrete. So we made some pretty good improvements at the municipal pool last year. And then we're doing some work in multiple NRCs as far as interior finishes, some LED lighting, and some exterior renovation in those areas. And then we're going to repaint the walls and ceilings in the municipal pool as well. And then we have some additional work in the Meadows Clubhouse. Meadows Clubhouse is about 25 years old almost now, so we're putting some money into that building on some much needed repairs. So, next slide, please. And next slide. So the next task under that same objective in the strategic plan to enhance our parks systems is to develop and execute a community amenity SIP. So next slide. Those are those major projects that the City Council developed as part of our strategic plan. And previously we had a Matson Field grandstand project, and as well as some lighting down at Southside Regional Park. Those are kind of on hold, so we pulled those out temporarily and then put the natural playground in its place so we could start dedicating resources and staff time towards that. So these are the 5 major areas that we're looking into. And be happy to answer any questions about those projects if you have any.
I'd like to do a quick shout out for the inclusive playground that we are still looking for this room, or anyone listening or watching is interested. I think we're still, Holly, unless we found someone recently, but we're definitely looking for someone to sort of lead the charge on that one.
We have not. The Kiwanis, we've gotten some money from $10,000 dedication from the Noonday Kiwanis, and then we got some from the Lions, Midday Central Lions Club. We've secured a $5,000 contribution over a 3-year period of time from them. And then we have talked to the AM Kiwanis, but still haven't found that project champion. And what that means is somebody who really grabs a hold of this project, that goes out into the community and visits with them, looking for donations and for some other sponsors and other sort of fundraising that isn't just the city staff or the elected folks. So looking for that project champion, just like the Rotary has taken on the natural playground, this one needs just that group that says, we'll do some fundraising for you. So,
Next slide, please. Just a few more details. We have the Homestead Trail construction was completed, and we have some work to do in the spring. Mike's guys to install benches and bike racks along that stretch of River Corridor Trail, and trash and dog waste containers, and some trail signage. So that's a picture of the actual signs that were installed, and we'll be putting information in there along the river corridor. Next slide, please. And as Mr. Hand had said, we are looking for a project champion for the inclusive playground. Next slide. That's kind of a schematic of what we're looking at. It's not fully designed. That's just a conceptual design of what we're thinking, and it will be located in Southside Regional Park, right next to Miracle Field. Next slide. Dog Park, as I said, that's the location down in Riverfront Park, and we're gonna look to start raising funds for that and looking for grant opportunities. And there's some fun examples of some amenities in the dog park on the slide there, but there's a whole list of cool things we can put in there.
And that got moved down a little further into that Oxbow area, it looks like, right?
It did, yeah. So it was originally going to be somewhere in the middle, but because the FEMA, the buyout property, we had to move it down. But this will actually work. It's a bigger space, and even though it floods it at lower than it would in the other areas, it's still, I think, higher than the dog park that Fargo has right across the river near the Furco Y. Yes, and so I think we'll be okay down there.
Do you know approximately what level that's at?
I think it's 28.
yeah, somewhere between 26 and 28.
Mm-hmm. But last year when it crested at 36, and once the river receded, I went out there shortly after and was surprised. It didn't even look like it had flooded. The grass was in great shape. It recovered really well. So I'm positive that this will be good.
That have to be like anchoring down, like any structures you put in there, or just remove them?
Yeah, that's what that's a great question. We're looking at options for both. For the larger ones, we'll look at securing them, putting a footing down there and securing them. And if they're lighter and can be removed, then we'll probably just remove those. Yes, yep. So once we get the complete layout, we'll take a look at that. And we're working with a potential vendor on those amenities as well to see what it would take to secure those. Next slide, please. Another task is developing that long-range vision and SIP for park amenities. And as you're aware, we get $250,000 a year in park amenities, which is really for the point of that is for replacement of existing features, not new ones. But we kind of balance that depending on what we can get in the capital improvement budget for added amenities. The biggest thing is our playground replacement plan, and so we replaced the playground at Bennett, and that was about $80,000. It's about $80,000 a playground to replace. So we'll be spending approximately that amount at Queens Park, and then we have 41 playgrounds in Moorhead, and so that's great. But we have that replacement plan, and we recap those about every 25 years. But we do an assessment on those, and sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it can be later. It really depends on the condition. So we've spent about 76% of our 2018 park amenities budget. We don't spend it all at once because we kind of want to have some reserve, some cash in there, just in case things come up. It's pretty expensive. You have to replace wood chips at one playground, and it's $3,000 to $5,000 for that. And pieces of equipment are pretty expensive. We got the Gooseberry Maze repaired, but that was a Lowe's Hero project that was free, and that was a great success. Great feature at Gooseberry.
It's not a, sorry to interrupt, that is not a spend it or lose it type budget. You spend what makes sense.
It is
If you have any extra, it carries over.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's a great question. It's not like, they're use it or lose it funding that you have to spend. So it really gives us the flexibility to manage that. When we a couple years ago, when we redid all the hockey boards out, the outdoor hockey rinks, and then built the new ones at Stone Mill, that was several $100,000. So it was we saved up several years of park amenities to do that project. Let's see, next slide, please. Next slide. And this is just a list of some other things that we're working on. I won't go through each of these. We spent a lot of money at Horizon Shores repairing some sidewalk and drainage issues over by the dock. That turned out really, really great. I was very pleased with that project. It's a high use area for a lot of walkers in the southeast portion of Moorhead. One of the things to note is that when we demolished the riverfront park structures and the tennis courts and all the fencing, that was about a $35,000 project. And since it was in the floodplain, we were able to fund that with flood dollars from Bob Zimmerman. I'd like to thank him. And that saved the park amenities budget $35,000. So we can use that in something else. Because demo is not real sexy, but it is when you look at Riverfront Park is really nice now. It looks gorgeous. So that is nice, but we didn't really bring anything to the community with that. So that was great of Bob to do for us. Bennett Park I already talked about, and then we just kind of set aside funding for various playground systems, components, slides, things that break, things that get damaged, and that need to be replaced. We set aside some money every year and to replace litter containers as well. Next slide. That first line item, I've set aside another $15,000 for the dog park out of this budget. So with the $25,000 in the 2019 CI budget, we got $40,000 set aside that can do pretty much a good portion of the fencing. So what we want to do is get the fencing done and then solicit grants and volunteers for the amenities to round out that park. So at least we have a usable fence for a small and large dog park area.
I think it's really important to note that even if we save for a few years, it's really important that the city has some money in on all these larger projects. We do some fundraising out in the community to be able to maximize our dollars, but this is money Steve sets aside so that, again, the city has some ownership of these and it moves the project along quicker.
Yeah, we want to show we put some skin in the game when we go and ask for contributions.
It's probably easier to fundraise for fun pieces of equipment rather than a fence.
Oh yeah, who's going to put their name on 100 linear feet of chain link?
Do we have a timeline for the fence installation?
It's going to be done this year for sure. We just don't know. We'll just see how the thaw goes and the flood goes, and then we'll go from there. But the intent is to get that. Really, the goal is to get this dog park up and operational with amenities this summer.
Yes.
So it can start to be used. Yeah, my dogs and my foster dog are anxiously awaiting that park. Next slide, please. This is the 2019 Park Amenities Spend Plan. We're only about 14% expended, but I have 96% of that is programmed, and those projects are listed below. This is where we can take a look at it, and if there's things you see in there or don't see in there, is time to get your input. So we got some hitting stations. We're going to work on South Side and for our ball fields. I set aside $50,000 for a potential start to build a fund to replace the Morningside NRC. That Morningside and the South Park NRC are our two oldest NRCs. They're in really bad shape. But so I want to get that Morningside NRC demoed, but you can't really do that unless we're ready to replace it. But this is part of where the planning process comes in. Maybe we need to build an NRC down in Stone Mill as for summer programs, for a warming house for the new hockey rink and ice rink we put down there, and maybe we just put a warming house at Morningside because the demographic has changed and there's not a huge need for a summer program in the Morningside area. And these are things we're just kicking around. This is no final decision. So if folks are watching in the Morningside area and have some input on that, of course, we'll listen and take that input. These are just things that we're discussing internally and would like your input on if you'd like to provide that as well. But those NRCs, to build those, are going to be expensive. And so we got to have a good plan for that. And that's why we're recapitalizing in the rest of our NRCs with interior and exterior renovations with some of these dollars. Our newest NRCs were all built in 1989. So they're, 30 plus years old. They're still in really good condition, and we put some money into the interiors, and we're going to put more money into it. But there's some structural issues going on the exterior of some of those NRCs, and we have to do some work there. Let's see. Got some fence repairs we need to do. Good news is the baseball field fence repairs that we had programmed to use park amenities budget. The storm on the 29th of June helped us out with that. So our insurance took care of the $60,000 project. So now I have some extra cash in the 2019 park amenities budget. It's better to be lucky than good sometimes. We're going to do some improvements on the disc golf course in Woodlawn. That's been kind of a hot topic for some of our college students and that are big into Frisbee golf. And then we're going to reserve some for miscellaneous repairs. Next slide, please. And then we installed lights at Stone Mill hockey rink and the leisure rink. So this winter we had lighting, and the kids could use that skating rink until, was it 9 o'clock? So we went from, that was a great improvement, and that was LED lighting, highly efficient, and they did a good job designing it, keeping that down. Did you get any no calls from the residents at
No
in
calls at
Stonewall?
all, so it went really well.
So repair some basketball courts at various parks, and we need to add AgriLime to a lot of our ball fields, so we're going to be buying some AgriLime with that funding. Next slide, please. And then really nothing expended in 2020 yet, a bunch programmed, and we're looking at some pickleball resurfacing. That's become a popular item in our community, which is great. So resurfacing at Alm Park, Village Green, and Hansman, and then taking the tennis court at Horizon Shores and putting 3 or 4 pickleball courts in there, which is what was cool about this project, is that there's how many tennis courts at Horizon Middle School? 12?
Yeah,
Or-
I can't remember exactly. It's in the
Well,
memo, I
with
know.
a project at Horizon Middle School, they put in a whole bunch of new tennis courts. So we have plenty of tennis courts in that area, so it makes perfect sense to convert this one tennis court to 3 or 4 pickleball courts. And it's a regional park, so hopefully we'll have lots of pickleball players over in Horizon area. Install a basketball court in Village Green 6th, and I replaced the playground at Queens Park. The next one is a potential to put a smaller warming house at Morningside if we decide to demo that NRC and not build an NRC. So some of this is kind of planned depending on where we go. Replacing the Morningside picnic shelter and some wading pool benches and borders around playgrounds. So there's various improvements. So we have quite a bit of money. If you add all the facilities money, park amenities money, capital improvement money, it's well over $1 million of investment that we're making in our 50 parks and 41 playgrounds across the city. So with one more slide, and then I'll be quiet. This is really cool. We went out and did an assessment and an inventory of all our playgrounds in October. And now IT has just finished making us a database. We're going to input all that data in there and come up with a spend plan, prioritize projects for capital improvement, new investment, and hoping to have this all input here in the next couple weeks. And then when the new planner comes on board, we have a database of that we'll use for our side for maintenance, and then for the planning side for long-range planning, and try to bring that all together and come up with a 10-year comprehensive plan for our park systems. So that's the ultimate goal. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
The only question I I see initially, just kind of bring it up, I noticed a lot of things are way down on the south side of Moorhead. What about our colleagues to the north of Moorhead? I didn't see too much of anything up there. What are the plans long-term for that and parks and whatnot?
Well, there's just maintenance and repair of the existing playground. We do have, like I said, Bennett Park playground was replaced. A couple of years ago, we put in 2 new playgrounds in the Oakport neighborhood. So Crystal Creek was brand new 2 or 3 years ago.
I think the legacy paths that were put in were from 11th Street up by Public Works all the way through the north side to Viking Ship Park. So all the new paths and amenities along those paths are on the north side, as well as the almost $2 million project, or how many million was the one at MB Johnson Park. So actually, I would say the north side has gotten more improvements in the last 5 years than probably the south side.
Yes, yeah, I would say so. And then we have, I think we have some playgrounds coming up in the north as well. Yeah, but that's a great question, because we do have to be aware of, our fair and equitable share across the board. Sure, appreciate that question.
There's another piece on here that's the playground assessment plan. And Steve, you might not have that on your slide deck, but it was a piece that you provided. I'm going to pass that down to you to comment on that one. And and the length that our playgrounds usually last are 20 or more years. We start looking at them at 15. Is that correct? Or I'll let you take it from here.
Well, we actually, our target is 25 years, but we start looking at it around the 20-year point. But now that we've done a complete assessment, on the sheet, you can see it's color-coded, similar to what we use for facilities condition assessment, a rating system. So if it's over 80, it's green, which means it's pretty much good to go. Might be some minor repairs that need to be made. Yellow, it's starting to degrade due to age, and maybe some of those components need to be replaced and maintained a little bit more. And then red is 69 or less, and that's really the ones we want to target. So when you look at the list, Morningside and Queens are red. So that's why we have Queens flagged for 2020, and then Morningside will get potentially a new playground in 2021.
Looking at Village Green East on there, I'm curious, that one, it's not young, but it's only 16 years old compared to like 20 or more, but it's got the lowest score. Any indication of why that?
We got to go, we have to look at that, because there might be some data anomaly there. But I was with my mowing crew last year, and I mowed that park, and I can't see why it would be a 40 other than it's kind of a small and undersized playground, and it really isn't in great shape, but that might be, but I don't think it's really a 40, so we're going to go back and reassess that one.
I also think in that particular park, we didn't have a lot of people around there to begin with, and I think they've had a lot of requests for new stuff, more, additional equipment. It's a large park, and there's a lot of people who use it, and which is why I think we also have a basketball court slated for that park, just to have additional things out there.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's a big space, and there's plenty of room for soccer, but that's the park is really small.
That's interesting. So if you have a new component added to the park, like a basketball court, is this assessment just based on like your stereotypical playground equipment, or is it the whole park as a whole?
Just the playground.
But we do have our part of our assessment that's going in the database does assign assessment rating to each of the components: basketball court, concrete condition, those kinds of things. Yeah, so it's a full assessment.
Steve and Mike and I drove every park this year and rated every amenity, and we're just waiting for the data input, and then you'll be able to see that. It was a
Took
fun
loads of
project.
pictures. It was a good time.
But it was, we were in better shape actually than I thought in a lot of things, but there's some things that need to be upgraded.
And it's really nice to get out when, usually I go out in response to an inquiry. So it's good to go out and just look at things, and there's a lot, and we should be proud of having 50 parks in our community and what we have. we're really blessed, and we'll continue to work hard to make those improvements and bring new amenities to the community. But it's pretty amazing when you get out there and see all of it.
Quick question for you on the bike path, which is just north of Morningside Park. I think we've seen some degradation of that based from the construction project. How is that going to look once the over underpass is?
Yes, where it exists right now, we overlaid that in-house in 2016, I think. But that's completely going to be redirected. That won't be there anymore, and it'll be a brand-new concrete path as part of that project.
It'll deter off of the current path?
Yes, I can't, it's going to be farther away from the property line, because actually where the existing one is it's pretty close to the BNSF right away.
Yep.
And so it moves that into, it completely adjusts that trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will there be a thoroughfare? Will we be able to get through, or we're not sure yet?
Yes,
Okay.
you will be, yeah. But I could get you a copy of what that's going to look like if you'd like.
Cool.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, well, excellent presentation, and, you know, from the board's perspective, I think we have a lot of faith in the work that you guys do, and everything just, you know, I think the Parks Department's in really good hands, so thank
Well,
you.
thank you. And seriously, if you have any inputs and you look through the slides again and you have any questions, please let us know. Because we can't, we have our thoughts about things, but sometimes we don't have all the data points from the residents and the citizens, and we certainly want input.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to the volunteer summary. Trevor.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, here today we're just kind of talk about some of our 2019 numbers for the volunteers that we had through a various of our different recreation programs and events and things that we had going on in our department, and serves this as an opportunity to kind of thank those Moorhead residents, businesses. I mean, we got people from the Fargo side as well, but you can kind of see in the packet where those numbers lay out, and over the course of 2019, we had nearly 700 people, and some of that, those numbers could be inflated with some of the businesses that were involved too, with more people there, but these people really helped out with a lot of our sports programs. You see the coaches, instructors there over at the Yum-Cum Center, serving at the front desk, just kind of providing information, getting people where to go. And then also our kind of our city beautification, cleaning up around the parks, the streets, the ponds, around the river. And, when you see the amount of hours they put in, I mean, you just heard Steve talk about all the work that their staff already has planned. So some of these, cleanup and maintenance thing, these volunteers certainly go a long ways to helping their staff around those parks and to keeping Moorhead clean, and a place that we all can feel proud of when visitors are coming in. We want that perception that, wow, this is a town that people can that's taken care of and really respected by the staff and the community. So right now, a lot of what we are getting into our spring and summer, where these beautification efforts really start to take place, and we get a number of people returning year in, year out. But again, what Steve just alluded to, we had 50 parks that we look to get people involved with. Along the river, we have 10 different zones that if you want to enjoy kind of the scenic routes there along the trails, we work heavily with river keepers on that as well. So when they get volunteers in, they kind of assist us in assigning a couple of those zones in the downtown area. We have downtown flower beds that a lot of local businesses and even individuals plant for us down there and maintain, as long with the streets and things, and just really looking for and wanting to recognize again those people that continue to be involved, but there's more that can be done. But you can see in that kind of the spreadsheet there, if we were to actually pay and having to invest in these positions, we're looking at, I mean, this is kind of a low-end estimate because really not many of these jobs can get by on $10 an hour, but you're looking at almost $90,000 that would be coming from, city funds to get these staffs and taken care of. And without these volunteers, a lot of these things can't happen. We need coaches to be able to run our baseball leagues and things like that. And it's just their efforts really help us and go a long way.
Maybe, Trevor, you want to talk a little bit about the recognition? We don't have money to pay folks or do a lot of special events, but there is some recognition opportunity.
Yeah, so we try to do what we can with, kind of what Holly said, with our limited resources towards that. We have a section on our parks website, recognizing every individual that kind of gives us permission to list them. In our flower beds downtown, we do have signs made that recognize, that this group is maintaining this bed, and that's what we can do with what we, kind of, like I said, do with what we can. There right now, there isn't any money budgeted towards, the volunteerism and that recognition. There's no, end of the year celebration or thank you. We're not giving them any, shirts or things at this point that maybe, even just the smallest things go a long ways for some of these people. They're willing to, sacrifice some of their time and for the betterment of the city. But even in my previous experience of events, having, those volunteers, if you can feed them, it goes a long ways. They anything that they can show that their efforts are really being noticed is helpful, and it helps us recruit more and more people down the road.
Do we have an opportunity to plan for future budget for those recognition items?
At this point, that hasn't been included in the budget. We just try to do the best we can to personally thank them, and there's a little bit of money, as you see in that recognition category for the coaches. We ask for donations from businesses to then thank them. So it hasn't been something, with all the needs in the community, folks a lot of times really just want to invest their own time in the community also.
Yeah, there's additional information on our website. In the packet, I think my contact information's there. So for anyone that is interested in getting involved in any of those areas that I mentioned, feel free to start a conversation. And obviously, like Steve had mentioned, there's a lot of areas, a lot of parks along the river that we could certainly put people to work if they're wanting to. Yep,
and Steve and Mike have also worked with Adopt a Streets, like even on Interstate and so forth. They've set up these zones. So it's a close working relationship between Trevor, who runs the volunteer program and the special events, and the city crews from Public Works, identifying those areas.
Very cool. Any other questions or comments? All right. Then we'll go on to the Moorhead Golf update. Holly, I assume.
Yep, I will take this one. We've made a few changes in the management level at Moorhead Golf. We have two pros that work for us. One of them is Russ Johnson and Jay Haug out at the Meadows. And both of them have in the past had a kind of a hybrid contract, half city employee where they get some benefits, and then half independent contractor. Well, they teach lessons and run the pro shop, and in the past had a percentage of different things. It's kind of, golf is a hybrid in that it for years has run differently. in that it was incentive-based, where we would pay them a wage of like $25,000, and then tried to have them sell stuff in the pro shop and then incentivize using the city resources. What we found out recently, starting kind of back in '09, they started to look at what's an independent contractor and what's a city employee and look at these hybrid contracts. And at that time, they took away a percentage of the golf carts and a percentage of the driving range proceeds. And it's been a slow trickle since then of suggestions that really it would be better if we wouldn't have those hybrid contracts, that you're either a city employee and you're not allowed to benefit off of city property, or you are an independent contractor and you can't supervise city staff and you can't have benefits. So we gave the both pros an opportunity to select which way they would like to run the pro shop. And because city staff sell the pro shop merchandise, it was just a murky kind of a mess through the whole thing. We were told by our labor attorney out of Minneapolis that this is something that's being looked at throughout the industry, especially in Minnesota. Not so much in Fargo, our neighbors. They still operate the way we did previously. But with that being said, we decided to kind of make the cut this year, knowing that it wasn't quite legal to bring the contracts, the hybrid version, and they chose to be city employees. Well, that left us a little bit of a hole for who's going to run the pro shop. So what's in front of you now is that we sent out a request for proposals, and Golf Pro, who was previously our assistant pro at Village Green Golf Course, was selected to provide the merchandise that will be in the pro shops. I don't know that the golf course folks, the participants, will see much difference. We think it'll be a seamless transition, but therefore the salaries of the pros were then rated based on the system that all city employees get rated with, the Springstead evaluation system. So their wages went up a little to compensate them against the losses and revenues that they got from the incentive-based. And then we selected an outside vendor who will pay the city some resources in regards to rent for the facility and so forth to be in the pro shop. And so Jeff Olson Golf Shop will run the golf shops this year. They will run them, he is scheduled to run them exactly like they were running in the past. And so I don't know if there's any questions out there or if I explained it or confused it.
No, I think that was really good. I know that I've personally got some calls and emails from people I know or having some questions and heard some rumors. And so I think this document in particular clears things up a little bit and gives some good background on
Okay.
it. So once
I
again,
think that, in today's world, they call it something that I won't even use the term, but I don't think they understand that there should be a seamless transition, that we're bringing in somebody else, and that the pros did have that choice of which direction they wanted to go, whether they could have been an independent contractor, and they chose the other. Another factor is it was a little sticky because as an independent contractor, you can't really supervise city staff. So although they were allowed to choose, there was also that caveat that we had to rethink how that whole thing came down. So there's just those persnickety employment laws, I guess, that we wanted to follow.
I did have a meeting with a couple of people that were concerned, and I talked to you a little bit about it, and I talked to the city manager. They were concerned about this, and then some other, the business end of the clubhouse part of it, the caterers and that sort of thing. And one of the things that the city manager threw around was just maybe having a meeting of those concerned people. I mean, these are the golfers. They have a vested interest in this, and just let them throw out ideas, see what we can do, what we can't do. They had little collaboration. So I hope that takes place. And,
Well, we certainly can do that.
Yeah.
I would like to have us get into the season a little bit.
Oh, yes.
I don't think you mentioned that there was this, unless I missed it, but the survey that went out. So
No,
there
I did
has
not
been some
mention that.
outreach.
It just so happened that this ended up in the middle of it all, but we had decided a year and a half ago or so, before this all came up even, that we were going to survey all of our golfers and see, how they felt about, we were having some trouble with food and beverage a few years ago. How was the new provider? What could we improve on? And we got a lot of good data. Also, kind of, how do they like the leagues? How do they like, not much about cost, because, that always turns out one way, but how, is there any course suggestions, course layout, and just a number of questions on golf. That survey is back, and we're getting that to our golf team. Already relayed all of those survey comments and whatever to our food and beverage staff, so they have an opportunity before the season starts to react to some of those. If those golfers are listening, popcorn's coming back. That was something that the city also didn't require them to do, was to provide free golf or free popcorn at the golf courses. So so that question's already over. But just kind of some of those, I think it'll guide the golf staff to provide a product that the customers can be really proud of. I think we always have to keep in mind these are municipal courses, so there's a lot of speed of play. Why don't we move slower golfers off the course? And to me, that's it's a municipal course. Every taxpayer is welcome on our golf courses.
And my understanding is that's a national
Yes.
issue with the game of golf, is the pace of play has slowed down a lot.
Yes.
So it's not just.
Yep, and we need to make sure we garner new golfers. And why do you allow kids? That was a comment. Why are kids allowed on the golf course? Well, there's private golf courses, and then there's municipal, and we run 2 municipal golf courses. So, there's some questions, like comments, and so you get a wide variety, but overall, very pleased, great comments, and we have a lot of good stuff to react to.
And I know the survey isn't released for our viewing just yet, but the food and beverage, I know we had a new vendor at the Meadows. Has that been overall gone well?
It has gone well, but it was tough to find somebody who understood golf. And so when we hired the new food and beverage, they were more of a catering company that had a couple restaurants. Even as the year went on, we used a suggestion box, and they would respond to some of those things during the year. I think you're going to find some league specials and, men's league night. They want to have more steak nights and so forth. I think you'll see them able to respond to that. It's tough to come into that kind of business because it was so rainy last year. They'd hire staff, and then we'd have 2 weeks of rain, and we'd have very little play, and then those employees didn't get any hours, and so then they were retraining constantly. I believe on year 2, I'm very hopeful that, I don't think anybody on year 1 would be, it takes a while. We don't want to be switching around all the time.
No.
So I think, as I said, with assembling a committee together, I think we need to give it a little bit of a chance. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Don't have any other comments. We'll go to, which we've talked about a little bit, but item 10 is transitioning the Horizon Shores tennis courts to pickleball, which this was brought up at the council meeting last night and voted on, so we don't need to vote or anything, but if you have any additional information.
The only additional information I have is that this was something that came to us by way of a citizen request. That said, I live out by Horizon Shores, and that tennis court is rarely used, and if it's used by kids using a skateboard, or, and then as Steve had mentioned, we have the Horizon Schools tennis court so close, and there's some at the high school. So anyway, this transition would bring 4 new pickleball courts in to this area. Steve has set aside $10,000. The price on this to get 4 courts is $25,000. So we have a project champion, Mike Soja, with State Farm Insurance, and we have him as the lead I'm just hoping that was the right insurance company now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, he is going to take the lead on raising the rest of the money, and we hope to be ready to go this summer yet. I told him last night that we gained permission. One other important note is that we did send postcards to all of the surrounding area within a mile radius of the tennis courts, asking them if that they would be in favor of transitioning. 100% of the responses, there wasn't a huge response, but within 100% of those that came back, I think it was 48 or something, said that, oh, they would use them all the time. And we did find a way to get into the apartments to survey them, which is something new that we did. So we sent out 500 postcards asking them to respond, and they were 100% positive of making that transition. Steve lives out there, so I think he would attest to the fact that this will be a great thing.
A two-part question on that. One, we have indoor pickleball league right now, I believe, right? And I'm
Yep.
curious how that, do we get a lot of registration for that? Is it busy, or is it, at capacity? And then second, do we intend on ever having outdoor pickleball programming or league play?
We don't intend to have outdoor because it's too sporadic. So we just kind of, some things, it's a lot of adults and a lot of different people. It's become the fastest growing sport in America. We do have indoor pickleball currently at a gym that we lease from the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd at their Community Life Center. That, again, is not a charged pickleball. They walk in and do that. It's one of the things as the dry floor arena at the Cullen Hockey Center, that will start to be a paid pickleball, and we will run those leagues and have a staff person who registers people and so forth. That will be programmed. And then we'll decide if we go to programmed in the future at the Community Life Center, if we're having staff that are there. But outside, I think we will always, unless we run an outdoor tournament as part of, say we clear them off for Frostival or even during the summer, if we would run a tournament, that would be a priced item. But at this point, it would just be open to the public.
Other comments? Okay.
Well, I do have a comment. I hope that this champion comes through, because one of the things, this was on the consent agenda on the city council, so it was, it pretty much was going to, there wasn't any controversy. But one of the things I keep seeing in the park information is always this fundraising aspect of it. And it just seems to me like parks shouldn't always have to go out fundraising. And I hope that this champion does come through. That would be wonderful, because you'd hate to see this delayed because somebody can't come out and fundraise the extra when there is a demand for it. And so I hope that more and more of these park requests are not fundraised, but they're paid for by the city. So we'll see.
In part, that's a great comment and question, and I think on some of these really popular things that we really want to do, we'll always have contingency to follow up. So we'll see how, I don't want to let that cat out of the bag, but, it's transparency. And so if this is truly important to the community, we don't get all the funding, we'll look for ways to make it happen. So, yeah, we want to be supportive of that, because we just don't want to hang our hat on fundraising and say, well, sorry, we'll move on to the next thing. We really want to execute these projects for the citizens, so we'll work that contingency financing, budgeting. That's it.
I really believe this is one of them that we need to get it done this year. Brunsdale or Fargo is expanding. They put in 6 or 8 courts, and now they're doing another group of them. That's how much use they get. So it's played in the south in the winter, and it's multi-generational. Keeps our older people active. The growth really is in our retired population, but I've played it many times. I'm not ready to retire, but, it's a fun thing, and 4 pickleball courts fit on 1 tennis court, which tells you that you don't have to move a whole lot. So.
And that's, again, coming back around to if there's some things that you really would like to emphasize and get accomplished, then we'll work together to make those happen.
All right. And then Holly, I don't know if you want to run through item 11 or if the information's in the packet, maybe you want to pick and choose some of them.
All of the rest of these have information in the packet. We were denied the trail expansion of the Midtown Trail and the Harvest Trail, which is out south of Blue Stem. So that legacy grant application was denied. We did get, we didn't have the information prepared in time for this packet, but we did get an Audubon grant, and we'll talk to you about that next time. So that will happen this summer. I think that was $55,000 or $60,000 to do more urban wetland sort of thing. So we continue to try to write grants and raise those monies that are needed, but the rest of it was a list of scholarships and donations and so forth, and then upcoming special events. So if you have questions about anything else in your packet, otherwise, we need to talk about them.
The May meeting date update?
Oh, that May date was changed because of Memorial Day. And I included a note in your, I think it's the week earlier. The May date is the 21st. Thursday. Good thing you said that.
So check your calendars if you have
Yep.
the date marked.
It's just an odd one. And the other date, the August dates and the November date is in there. And we are planning a tour that'll be off schedule. It will be a meeting that we will notice because when we gather everybody together, it's a public meeting. But we're hoping to do just a tour. We're hoping that you guys get out and look at all the parks, but to tour things where we have projects going. You know, kind of those, maybe we'll go look at the dog park area. And, you know, just kind of those sites that are really something that's happening. And we'll do that in June or July. That date isn't set yet. We'll visit with you guys.
Can you remind me, the Heartland Trail, was that the grant that was denied, or was that a different one?
No, that, you have information in here also as number D. The Heartland Trail is something that there's legislative priority for, and you saw that in that piece we put on the table that was in the paper because that didn't make the packet also. But there is really a push in the legislature to finish that Heartland Trail, the segment in Clay County. So I think that's an exciting time where you should be able to bike you know, from one end of the state to the other. They're having trouble getting through Detroit Lakes, I hear, because of all the road construction that comes together at that one location. But, you know, that's something that they're hoping the legislature will, the Minnesota legislature will continue to fund, and MetroCog is working on that more. I think in one of our next meetings, I have a presentation plan from the DNR. They will come and talk to you guys.
Very cool.
Well, especially if that moves up the priority list. The city of Moorhead has their own legislative priority, and not to make the meeting longer, but Steve, do you know that by heart? I know the waste transfer station is one of them. 11th Street underpass is
11th Street
number one.
underpass.
No, you're number one.
Huh?
Is the waste?
Yes, the waste facility is number one. And then, 11th Street underpass, community center, and aquatic center.
City Hall.
City Hall's with the community center, I think. There might be just 3. I thought there was 4
Yeah,
The flood
legislative.
mitigation part of it, too.
Yes, the flood mitigation is
Oh,
one as well.
okay.
To finish the Oakport neighborhood, very north and very south of that one.
And when the city sets legislative priorities, it's what we ask our legislators to really push for and vote for or whatever. So it's very cool that the community center is something that they're looking at. There's some thought of the inclusive playground being included. I don't know if that will make it or not. But you really, this waste transfer station that Steve, it is critical to the citizens, so from.
Isn't that our oldest city building or facility right now, is the existing transfer station?
It is, it's 45 years old and was built for, so we pushed a lot less tons of municipal solid waste through 45 years ago, and we're doing about 32,000 tons now annually.
And I know I saw Ben Lead introduce the bill for the rec center, and I'm sure the transportation as
yep.
well, but.
Yep, but we do have a priority, and that's a joint with the county, the waste, right?
Yes, yeah, that's really the county's driving the transfer station project because it involves their household hazardous waste facility and problem materials facility.
Fun stuff.
I know, we always are behind floods and waste but, you know,
Awesome. All right, well, yeah.
Well, I just mentioned that we, as city council, had a chance to tour that River Haven. And I bring that up because one of the partners in it is willing to work with the park if they want to do some sort of, music or something back there. So it's just food for thought.
yep, that's the location where we have our river arts, where we set up our stage every year. But I think River Haven is the old Ushers, the old Red Bear, the old
Legion.
Legion.
Broken axe.
Anyway, I think they're getting close to opening, aren't they, Larry? That it's going to be a
Well, there's
concert venue,
Yes, it's an event center.
no longer a restaurant. It's an event center. And I think they have a cool patio, and I was over there the other day, and we counted 24 deer
Wow.
right around their backyard, which may be something we eventually will be talking about. But, what could be nicer than sitting up in that venue and looking out over the natural?
It's one of the best views of the river
It
in
is.
Metro.
It
Well,
is.
yeah, no arrow slits and or bow hunters.
And as it floods this year, Steve's happy to not have it on his plate, right?
Oh, yes, yeah, that's one less thing to worry about.
Because it is a flood-affected building.
Sure.
Okay?
All right, well, thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.